The Centresteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners. Welcome to the 9th episode of the Centresteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover enthusiasts, or as my colleagues like to say, Land Rover geeks. I'm John Costage, your host, and I have several Land Rovers. You've probably heard about them. I have a Series 3, I have a Defender 110, and a Disco. And the Disco actually runs, and so it's the Series 3, thankfully. But I don't have it yet at the moment.
Hi, this is Dave, future member of Rovers Anonymous. I currently have a pair of Discos and a pair of Disco parts trucks to support the current Discos.
And this is Mark. I have an 01D2 that's a work in progress.
And I'm Harold. I'm addicted to Rovers. I admit it.
And this is Morgan in Vermont. I've got a 1982 Series 3 that I have been restoring that's sadly been boxed up for the winter, basically. So,
is it being neglected?
It is, yeah. Work, all that, holidays.
That happens.
Yeah.
My 110 blew an engine, and I think it's been stripped down, or is being in the process of being stripped down for a upcoming paint job. So
it's been partially parted out.
It'll full resto is probably the best way to put it. So yes. Well, welcome to the episode where we try to talk about Land Rovers and all things Land Rover, usually new, hopefully old, and things that interest and spark us as we see them throughout the month. It's a monthly podcast. Hopefully, you've been listening for a while. If you haven't, hopefully you'll continue. And our first thing we like to talk about is the news, and we like to start with sales just because it's nice to talk about good things, especially Land Rover sales for November were wonderful, up 37%. In the United States, I think, if my information is correct, over in November from the previous year. It's best November since 2005, all thanks to the Range Rover and the Range Rover Evoque. They were up 25%. And Jaguar, by the way, since they're, as you know, they're combined, Jaguar is up 103% in November because of the XF and the XJ all-wheel drive models and the F-Type. So things are looking well in the sales land.
Wow.
Double the kitties. That's pretty good.
Yes. And speaking of sales and the Rover lineup, some good news. The current Defender is going to stay on for another couple years till 2017. Originally, because of emission and safety and fuel regulations in Europe, they were going to have to cease production in 2015. But it seems it's not quite clear. But the article that I read. It says with a better and more efficient 2.2 liter engine, and the Land Rover Defender is compliant with EU 6 norms, which I think is their emissions regulations. So it has an extended life now until 2017. So that's some good news. And I think they're going to bring out some new truck variants too. I think a pickup truck's going to come out.
Yeah, I heard about the pickup, which is pretty cool. I mean, they've had pickups before, but it's nice that they're sort of putting an emphasis on that.
Wasn't there a pickup now? I mean, they have all those different Defender variants. How's this different? Do you know?
I don't know that it really is different, other than they're maybe focusing on it more. I think before the pickup wasn't maybe their biggest model, and it was sort of an option package as much as anything else. But
then it appeared in James Bond.
Yeah, that 130. Yeah, it was 130, wasn't it?
Yeah, quad cab.
Yeah, right. So the good news, because I know everybody here around the table, and including Morgan, who's virtually around the table, enjoys the Defender, and it's nice to see they'll be continuing, even if we can't buy them fresh here in the United States.
Absolutely. Means at least another few years of parts, too.
Good point.
And in another 25 years, we'll have more to choose from.
Exactly.
Definitely.
As we all salivate over Defenders.
And possibly an important note, it also says that pending another loophole in pedestrian safety, it could stick around until 2020.
Nice. That'd be great. That'd be great.
Well, that gives them more time to develop the replacement that they seem to be on again, off again with.
I don't think the replacement wasn't really well received, even though it grew. I mean, personally, it grew on me, as you know. I know you guys, it didn't really grow on you. But
but you like the Freelander, so there's no accounting for taste.
The Freelander is a great vehicle. Don't start on the Freelander. I like the Freelander. It was my very first Land Rover, and it was wonderful.
Well, that's fine, but a Defender, it's not.
No.
And the new Defender was not either, so it's nice that they're taking a step or two back, and now they have some time to spend some more time doing it right.
Or doing it differently.
Or doing it right.
We'll see if it's right.
It will definitely be different.
It will certainly be better.
The technology on it looked pretty cool. I'm anxious to see that alone.
You mean that DC 100 concept?
The tech is cool, but on the other hand, the Defender is supposed to not be about tech, so it's kind of nice. It'd be interesting to see how they're able to do low tech in a high tech environment.
Yeah, the tech presents lots of stuff to break.
I'm sure there'll still be some military variant of it that will be stripped down to the bones with no tech.
Certainly hope so.
They'll be fun to have in 25 years.
Well, to be clear, when you talk about tech, you're talking about electronic tech, because there is tech on it now. It's mechanical technology. And I think you're getting at the electronic aspect of it, which electronics are also getting better, and they are improving and making things more durable and reliable. They're having their current problems of growing pains of being integrated into the vehicle, as all vehicles are. So I don't see people say that it's Defender should not be tech. I tend to disagree. I think the electronics is not necessarily a detriment to the vehicle, but I like tech. I like electronic tech. Well, but you got to try stuff. I mean, you look at the all-terrain response. For like, oh, that's stupid. Why do I need that? Now everybody has one. I mean, Toyota has it, Jeep has it. They call it something different, but it's a neat idea. Set it, turn it, and it adjusts the vehicle. Does things that you can't do that make it better and safer for you, and so you can enjoy yourself.
Soak it in 3 feet of water and then run past it with an EMP. We'll see how well it does then.
Yeah, okay. And you get yourself a nice stick into the undercarriage too, and it breaks into the oil pan. There's your tech defeated. So
that's a different kind of technology there,
right? So
and that's fine. That's
all things can happen.
That's true. Things can happen, but those are the things the military looks for.
Right.
And in a ruggedized Defender, that's the cool stuff.
I'm with you there. But militaries also has advanced tech, and they're moving towards automated vehicles and automated things. So they are using tech. Tech is not necessarily bad, I guess is my point.
And not necessarily good either. Especially with the British.
Well, that's why we're here. It gives us something to talk about, right?
That would be true.
That would be. Otherwise, there would be no need for us to sit here and discuss. So, further along in the lineup of Land Rovers is a Freelander replacement, or so that's what they're calling it. It's a baby Discovery, and it's supposed to replace the Freelander. And so they're kind of not really a shuffle, I guess a slight shuffle of the lineup. The idea sounds like the existing Discovery will stay, and then there's going to be a smaller Discovery, and it's going to be or kind of replace a Freelander, but bigger than the current Freelander. The thinking, the article I read, which was Car Magazine out of the UK, says that the Evoque has seemed to have taken all the sales of the city Land Rover ones that are needed for just around town. And so it looks like, I suspect it's sucking up some of the Freelander sales. And so they're going to slot this bigger Freelander, but baby Discovery into the lineup in, I think, late 2014 was the impression.
Sort of a poor man's Evoque?
It didn't say that.
Okay.
Is this going to be a Disco 2.5? I mean, we already have a D2 and a D1. D3 and the
D4, and then I get the impression that the D5 would come in after the way the article read didn't say this, but the D4 would be there as a 7-seater by default. The baby Disco, which I don't like that name, but I guess that's what they used, would come in and be smaller, but it could be up to a 7-seater potentially. And then sounds like there would be a new D5 in the offing after
10-seater.
The Disco Light.
There you go. Disco LT.
As long as they don't call it the Disco Roman numeral 2, because that's worked so well for the Bronco and the Mustang.
Well, we already had the Series 2. They couldn't really call it. I can see why you'd say maybe the 4.5 then, technically.
Well, the Disco 2 now is a Roman numeral 2.
That's Series 2. It's true, but nonetheless, that scheme hasn't worked well for the Americans before.
No.
Some cool stuff, though. The Baby Discovery would share the powertrain of the trendy, the word they use, Evoque. And then later, they would start to use the British-built engine of that new engine plant they're building in Wolverhampton.
Is this just going to be like a comeback of the LR3?
Well, the LR3 is a Disco. What are you getting at?
Right. Well, they don't have them now, correct? Or the two. They got rid of one.
What do you mean, the Freelander?
No.
Can we use the British, not the American model names?
Well, the LR3, the Disco 3, got updated to the LR4, the Disco 4, but it really didn't change the platform much. I mean, there's
It was a fascia change, basically.
a couple hundred little details changed, as they like to do, but it didn't really change the basic platform.
Well, we had the LR2 for a while.
Yeah, we still have the LR2.
That's the
Freelander, too.
That was a Freelander.
Which is a separate platform.
I didn't think we had that here still.
We do. We do.
Ah, okay.
And that's really just a badge engineered Volvo anyway.
So here we have the LR2, Freelander 2. LR3 was a Disco 3, and the LR4 was a Disco 4.
Which is really just an LR3 with an update.
And the Range Rover Sport was an LR4, and now the new Range Rover Sport is going to be a Range Rover Sport on its own.
Now, I wonder if part of the reason why they're making this new Freelander replacement as a miniaturized Discovery as a way to get away from the Volvo platform of the Freelander 2.
I would
suspect.
And break
that would
themselves
make a
away
lot
from
of
Ford,
sense.
too.
Or the Chinese, depending on how you want to look at it.
Well, they're getting in bed with the Chinese, though. They're building a plant.
Understand that, but Ford has nothing to do with either company anymore.
Don't they still own Volvo?
Nope. The Chinese do.
When did that happen?
Last year. Or
Really? I missed
the year
that one.
before. Or it's been a while.
Oh, I missed that. I thought they still owned Volvo.
No.
Oh, damn. No? Well, I'm sure they want. I mean, everything I'm seeing, they're building their new plants. It sounds like they want to be their own company, their own supplier. They're building this engine plant. They're building something with Brazil manufacturing facility there. So it sounds like they want to do their own
Well,
stuff.
I think they have everything they need, and they have with Jaguar tied in with them. I think between the two of them, they have everything they need.
Or they will when they build these new plants. They're still getting supplies and parts from other car companies, to fit the Freelander.
Largely to support designs that already require other people's stuff. So by having their own platforms, they have the capabilities within their combined company to produce everything they need. They just need to get all their platforms in line with doing that.
Right. So they will be there. I think that's.
Right.
I think you and I are agreeing, but they're not there now. They're getting there.
No, because of the existing models they have, they can't be entirely there. But once they move those models into something in-house, then they'll have all their own stuff in-house.
Harold and Ward.
Lately, the news has been all a Twitter about UPS and FedEx failing to deliver packages in time for the holidays. While it's easy to blame the messenger, there were a number of factors contributing to the problem. Since Thanksgiving was 6 days later than last year, the traditional holiday shopping season was shorter as well. More people than ever did a significant portion of their shopping online, and since retailers kept pushing the deals past the traditional Black Friday and Cyber Monday events, many shoppers waited until the very last minute in hopes of a better deal. Throw in a couple of icy weather systems, and it really was a perfect storm for the shippers. In light of these recent events, it would behoove us to take a look at how these companies operate and compare their relative strengths. Both FedEx and UPS provide a variety of service levels and deliver everything from small envelopes to very large packages. Both maintain fleets of trucks and cargo planes and operate a complex network of freight hubs and distribution centers. They both pick up and deliver most anywhere in the world, but the way they handle these tasks is how they differ greatly. UPS makes all their deliveries in the same familiar brown trucks. FedEx operates separate fleets of trucks for each class of service. 15 years ago, when FedEx wanted to go full-scale into the ground shipment business, they bought an existing company with their own fleet of trucks. They rebranded the operation FedEx Ground and painted the trucks to look similar to their express trucks, but in a different color scheme. Later, when they wanted to expand their residential delivery service, they added a third, distinct fleet of trucks with a dog painted on the side. While these fleets share the same distribution centers, they otherwise operate as separate companies. With FedEx, it is sometimes hard to predict which truck is going to deliver your package, and if you're a business, waiting for a package that was unexpectedly placed on the puppy truck can be difficult, especially if you need it on Mondays, since home delivery doesn't go anywhere on Mondays. You may also have to stick around after hours or on Saturday to get your package. On the other hand, the evening and Saturday service is helpful to consumers who might otherwise have to miss work to wait for a package that has to be delivered during the day. UPS delivers everything in the same brown truck. The advantage is smaller routes and regular, recognizable drivers, resulting in better customer service. My current UPS driver knows me so well that he knows to bring my deliveries around back while I'm working. If I need to run down the street for something, and he sees me while I'm out, he'll flag me down and hand me my package so he doesn't have to find me later. If all else fails, he will stop back at the end of his route to try again before returning to the terminal. Of course, if I know he's coming, it's easy to meet him since he always comes at the same time, plus or minus 10 minutes. On the other hand, a bad driver will make for a universally bad experience with UPS. With FedEx, you will likely have a 1 in 6 chance of a good experience, depending on which truck and which driver you get. My history has shown that the good UPS drivers tend to stay with the same route long term, while the bad ones tend to move around looking for something better. FedEx tends to rotate drivers more frequently, making it hard to develop a relationship with the customer. Another key difference between UPS and FedEx is in how they handle peak times like the holidays. UPS does roll more brown trucks, but they also put a second person on each truck to assist the regular drivers with the most difficult part of the job, unloading the truck and carrying the packages to the door. FedEx employs seasonal temp workers and puts them in plain white vans, so now you have a fourth distinct fleet and a bunch of new drivers that really don't know much about the neighborhood or the customers they're delivering to. At this point, I would be remiss if I didn't mention there is another option. It's the oldest logistics company in the country, and they invented express service. It's the United States Postal Service. They're not just for postcards and letters. The routes are small, with dedicated carriers who know their territory. If they can't deliver, you can collect your package at the local office just a few miles away, instead of driving 40 miles to the UPS or FedEx distribution center to intercept your package. Large packages really aren't their strong point, but they do envelopes and small packages so well that FedEx and UPS offer a class of service that utilize the U.S. Postal Service for the local last mile of the delivery. They will pick up your shipment for no additional charge, and you can purchase postage online if you don't have time to go to the post office. The Postal Service will also deliver to rural addresses without additional surcharge, and they will deliver to P.O. boxes, which is something the others simply won't do. It is difficult to say that any one carrier is better than the others. They all have their particular strong points, besides just competing on price. Whenever possible, people should choose the carrier that best meets their particular needs. Not all retailers let you choose, and some don't tell you who it's going to be until after it is shipped. I, for one, try to avoid these mystery shipping deals and try to plan carefully when I know a purchase involves one of my less favored carriers. Finally, I've made it one of my New Year's resolutions to give thanks to the companies that allow me to choose who handles my packages. I intend to let them know in as many words, and also to give more of my business to those companies that give me the choice, and less to those who don't.
Winter has started here in Pittsburgh, Northeast United States, and a good topic, I think, would be to discuss winter driving and being prepared for winter driving, not just in the snow, but in the cold and the ice, and some ideas of what everybody around the table does to prepare their vehicles and themselves for driving in the snow.
Hopefully Mr. Vermont can help us out.
Yes, be curious to see what you guys are doing up there.
Yeah, I should be able to help out a little bit.
I think up there they have to prepare for spring more than winter because, it's the more common season and all that.
Yeah, mud season is a little bit interesting up here.
I know in my particular case, big thing is getting the proper tires on all the vehicles, and I keep kind of an emergency bag in all of my cars, and I swap that out per season. So
What's in your emergency bag?
For my winter bag, I have winter clothing.
You have a non-winter bag?
Yes.
What's that for? What is you have like a summer or?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
It's basically cold weather, normal.
So you have like
weather.
normal hot weather and then a cold weather bag.
Correct.
Okay.
And I swap those out in the truck pending the season. And just general survival stuff, but
like your coffee pot and your backup coffee pot and the backup to your backup.
Maybe.
Is this the time we get to tell everybody he's a major espresso fan?
I am a espresso fan.
I sent him a link a couple days ago with the espresso, a travel espresso machine that you use. I said, "Do you already have this?" He goes, "Yeah, I already do."
I have the better version of that, in my opinion. The one you sent plugs into a cigarette lighter and has its own pump to pressurize and heat the water, and will spit you out an espresso.
And your preferred model has its built-in fusion reactor?
Preferred model is a hand pump. All I need is hot water. So that goes anywhere with me. I don't need power at all.
I think we're going to add to our list here of espresso on the trail.
Coffee preparedness.
It was, I do tea on the trail. So I think this is a whole new segment we're going to have maybe in the next episode. Off-road and eating and drinking. I like it. But continue.
Brings a new dimension to the cars and coffee concept.
Yes,
it does. I should show up to that with the Rover and make my own coffee. But the jet boil is one of the things that's in my winter prepared bag, whereas it's not usually in the summer bag because it's with my camp gear. But beyond that, I also keep general recovery gear in the truck at all times. And for winter, I make sure I have some sort of traction, whether it be kitty litter or just... Actually, right now I have those plastic... tread blocks. I'm not sure what you'd call them.
Sand ladders, like sand ladders?
Kind of like sand ladders. These are very small. I tested them in mud. They actually
traction mats, I think they call them.
Yeah, these are. They're not like the tow truck in a bag thing. It's hard. I assume plastic. ABS plastic, folds in three, has tread on one side, tread on the other. They're short, maybe 2.5, 3 feet long, but it's enough you can get it under the wheel and get some gription. Gription.
Yes, for when things get slippy.
Yes.
As we break out our Pittsburghese.
Yes. But basically, I have the vehicle prepped to handle cold weather, changing the oils out, making sure my fluids are topped off, proper tires, and some method of self-recovery if possible. An important one, which I just got to use, is my jump pack. It's compressor and battery jump, because my battery just all of a sudden died on me this past weekend, so I was able to jump myself and get home.
For the record, I wouldn't say suddenly. That battery was 7 years old. You got good use out of that battery, mister.
I did.
And the coldest day of the year so far was Christmas Day here. It was 10 degrees at night, 10 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not sudden, sir.
It was sudden in the fact that there was no precursor to it just being dead as a doornail.
Inasmuch as your borrowed time suddenly ran out.
I'd like to note again, I always carry a jump pack.
Which is evidenced by the point that you carry a jump pack. It came into use because you did have a failure at an inopportune time.
I did. And,
keep in mind that jump pack runs on a battery, so it will have a lifespan also.
And it's frequently checked and charged after every use.
And still will have a lifespan.
Yes. Well, one backup is better than none. So.
This is true. But it's a good idea to keep an eye on your backups and make sure your backups are current enough to be up to task. It's like checking the air in your spare tire. It's no good to you if it's flat.
Yes. Very true.
Or the tread's cracked or whatever.
So jump pack should have a few more years out of it. Try and take good care of it because it has saved me and others several times.
So what would you say is your number one thing that you do to prepare for winter driving? And this assumes this is on-road driving. We're not talking about off-road driving, right? They're really separate animals. Well, they're similar, but separate animals.
Night before the first call for a snowstorm, I get snow tires on all the vehicles.
You do that yourself?
Yes. I'm one of those weird people that has 2 sets of wheels for all of his cars.
No, I don't think that's that weird.
It is if you see my garage.
That's why you don't park anything in the garage, right?
You should see my
one
garage.
bay. Yeah, I'm down to one bay, but I have 2 sets of tires for 3 vehicles. It's a lot of.
That's a lot of tires.
Well, when your
lot of
disco's
tires.
too tall to fit in the garage, it just leaves me more room inside for spare tires.
Correct.
So tires is your number one.
That's
number one thing.
Probably my number one. After that, it's general vehicle maintenance.
So would
Make
you go with
sure-
studded tires versus just non-studded tires?
I don't think we have severe enough winters here to mandate studded tires. And it's one of those things, if you want a studded tire, you have to do it when it's brand new. There's no undoing it if it's not bad enough for it and you're just, ripping everything up.
Or
in
that's
the
a third
meantime.
set of tires.
Right, or you have a third set that can
You
take
can
studs.
undo studs once.
Right, but you can't redo that.
Oh no, you're done. Once you've committed that route, you're done.
Right,
I think a lot of I know about a lot. I know of one place that requires that you have winter tires on your vehicle. That's Quebec. Requires you to have winter tires because they don't plow if it's less than 4 inches or something of snow, and so then like, hey, look, suck it up, get winter tires, and then go, and then we'll plow only when it gets really heavy. I mean, here in PA they plow all the time and overly salt, so
Yes.
it's not a requirement here. But
I've been meaning to get a set of change for the different vehicles. I don't have a set at the time. Places like Colorado, they have passes you're not allowed to attempt without snow chains, so...
California's the same way. They won't let you through without chains unless you have a four-wheel drive and winter tires all around. Then they'll let you through.
Right. And
Yeah,
here
we
we don't necessitate that so much.
Yeah, we have a couple of passes in Vermont where it's chains required for winter travel.
and summer travel, right?
What's the difference?
Only for 9 months out of the year do you have to have change.
Actually, the better question is, what's summer?
Summer is that about a week of sunshine where you get to go and take off your long underwear and all of that.
Thanks for going with the joke. We appreciate that.
So
So tires. So you're going to have food, and what about fuel? Do you take any extra fuel with you?
I just acquired a military jerry can, and that has started making trips with my truck. So
I just was talking to somebody over the holiday. They had they were coming back in West Virginia, and apparently there's a tunnel that goes through on the interstate, comes out in Virginia, and if I got the place right, vice versa. Anyways, apparently the Virginia side didn't plow, and so everybody was getting stuck and coming down this a big hill, so they were stuck for 8 hours.
wow, that's a long time to
Yep.
have a vehicle running.
I
stay warm.
don't think he did. I think he parked. Everybody parked, and he slept in the truck. And
That's where
car.
having not only extra fuel but a blanket is a good idea.
Yeah, I was just going to say I also keep a all-weather warm blanket in the truck.
Aren't
The
all
truck I
blankets
keep
warm?
over-prepared. The other vehicles I have minimally prepared. So, figure one way or another I'll be okay.
The important thing to keep in mind if you're going to carry spare fuel is keep that fuel fresh. Rotate it through your tank. Don't just buy a tank full in fall, and if you never need it, expect it to be any good next summer. The
Yes.
blends are different from season to season. You need to use summer fuel in summer and winter fuel in winter, and still it should be fresh. Don't let it get old.
Was it about 3 months or something? Is that the rule of thumb for fuel?
Yeah, but you may as well just. I would go ahead and when it's time to fuel up, take it from the jerry can first, and then refill your jerry can. That way, it's always fresh.
Yeah, but you're not going to do that every time. That's why if you do it once a month or once every 3 months, you should be okay.
3 months is a little long.
Okay, all right. That's why I was looking for the time period. For
So
fuel.
maybe once a month, or depending on how often you drive and how often you fuel up, that could be every time for some of us.
I refuel a lot, so I don't think I need to do it every time.
As a disco driver,
As a disco driver with a work commute, that makes a difference.
Yes. And I do like to drive it, so
yes, you do.
it gets its mileage.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. So tires, fuel, food. What else? Blankets,
Don't forget the coffee and the backup coffee.
coffee in the back. That goes under fuel.
Any
Okay.
any
For
extended
the human.
trip, coffee is included.
So what about driving tips, like the actual driving part? So you've gotten the vehicle ready. There's snow on the ground. It's maybe icy. They are not plowing.
The driving tips, I think, vary vehicle to vehicle. There's a very common belief that front-wheel drive cars are the way to go if you're in the snow. A lot of people still love rear-wheel drive, and then there's the people with four-wheel drives. So depending on the vehicle, the driving tips would definitely change. But I think the
dynamics of the vehicle in the slippery weather are very different between front and rear-wheel drive.
yes.
Well, since we're
Front-wheel drive is great for getting you going, but if you try to slow down, think about what you're doing, plan ahead, and don't back off in a corner. Otherwise, your rear will be passing your front.
but since we're dealing with Land Rovers, which are four-wheel drive,
Unless you break a prop shaft or something.
Yes.
why don't we continue in that vein with four-wheel?
I think the best advice I've ever heard is to drive like you have hot coffee full to the top in your car. So keep it steady.
I like how
Slow or
you
fast.
focused on that one. That was you focused on that
You
analogy
don't want to
very
spill
easily.
the coffee. But the idea is to keep everything steady.
I'm kind of stuck on the drive like you had hot coffee.
Okay, it's
As
not
opposed
like
to
there is hot
drive
coffee.
because there is hot coffee, maybe.
But keeping everything steady, I think, is the most important thing. Safe distance between you and other vehicles is much more important.
So it's really not much different than off-road driving. Fast as necessary, slow as possible, keep distance.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, don't do anything abrupt.
Watch the road, not just in front of you, but watch the road in front of the guy in front of you.
That's driving all the time, but yeah.
Well,
Just more so when the roads are slippery. But sure, it's the same thing because it's common sense.
I try and keep an eye on what's behind me more when I'm winter driving too, because there's always some idiot out there.
I would say I do a little more rear view watching than I typically do in winter.
I try not to. It distracts me from what I actually have some control over. I can't do much about the idiot behind me, so I just have to have some trust. And the moment I try to change my driving to stay ahead of the guy behind me, I'm doing something stupid in front of me.
Yeah, but if you see someone sliding, you might be able to go a little faster, or at least maybe minimize if
Maybe in the
occurred.
short term. But
Yeah.
Lane change.
But the only
something.
lane change. Yeah, it's tough. But I'm with Mark. I do a little more rear view watching than I do normally.
Having been rear-ended, it's kind of a special area for me anyway, and it makes me nervous. I get where you're going.
So, any other driving tips?
No, I think you hit it. Mostly it's if you're in something like a Land Rover and you're used to off-roading and your name is not Dave, I think you apply the same off-road skills you do in the
So you're
mud
calling out Dave now, man.
as you do in the snow. I'm just picking.
Gee, I can't imagine why you'd be picking on Dave.
Is there a difference? Do you prefer automatic over stick? I know how much. I'm not sure how much manual winter driving you have.
I've done a lot, not in the Land Rover. Obviously, it's automatic.
Well, your BMW's stick, right? You put
It's
winter
a
tires on
slap
that?
shift.
Oh, okay.
So,
So technically, no.
it's not. I drive it like it is, but it's not.
I can tell you, I'd prefer on road. I would prefer a manual in the winter.
And that is because
Just feels like you've got a lot more control.
You have more choice over what
Slow
gear
down.
you're in. You can start out in a higher gear to minimize slip because you're applying less torque to the road.
Right.
Now, on the other side of that, when it comes time to slow down, you have better control over your wheels slowing down too quickly in an automatic than in a manual.
yeah.
Unless you think ahead and don't. The people tend to downshift to slow down. That can be a real risk in slippery surfaces in a manual.
Right. But it can also be helpful, too, because you're not as abruptly applying, because a lot of people tend to jam on the brakes versus kind of ease on the brakes. And
Well, they
slowing
do,
down.
but on the other hand, the brakes work theoretically equally upon all four wheels, and it isn't necessarily the case with engine torque.
Right.
Less so in a Land Rover, but in some, when you're only driving two wheels, you're going to slow those wheels down more readily than the others.
Well, in rethinking, I guess the thought for me with a manual is you can actually slow down without having to change gears, because if you let up on the gas, typically that gearing is enough to start slowing you down automatically. Whereas an automatic seems like it rolls more.
It tends to coast more, yeah.
Yeah,
but you do get some
coasting.
slowing down effect. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, it's actually better. And most of the manufacturers, when they're winter driving tips, they tell you to use the brakes, not the engine, to slow the vehicle.
Right.
My discovery, if I let off the gas, it slows down. I can be going downhill. If I let off the gas, it slows down.
Oh yeah. You have a giant parachute on yours.
You have a tad of wind resistance, yeah.
A little bit.
And some rolling resistance inherent in its weight.
Yes.
There's a lot of rolling resistance in a disco.
Mark, just wait till you start bolting other stuff on.
That's coming.
So what about special advanced winter driving tips from our Vermont correspondent? Anything special going on up there?
Well, it's pretty much what you've already covered. One thing I'll add is windshield washer fluid is a necessary to keep stocked up on. There's nothing, at least in Vermont, there's nothing like getting 5 minutes into a commute and running out of windshield washer fluid. Around here, it's about 11 miles between exits on the highway, and there's no getting off, no places to pull over or anything like that. I do prefer a manual in the snow. We get fairly frequently changing weather up here. So it's a matter of checking the weather, checking it frequently, and planning ahead. Because I have about an hour commute every day one way, and I can hit everything from freezing rain to snow and back again.
What's your elevation
one
change
commute.
in that hour?
It depends. One of my favorite routes is over one of those gaps that they require chains in the winter. So I generally don't take that in the winter because I have just a Volvo that I'm driving. But yeah, that will go up to about 2,200 feet. And I live right on Lake Champlain, so starting out around 5 or 10 feet. So
Lake Champlain is 5 feet from sea level.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't think it was that low. I thought it was probably like 1,000.
Now, do you carry a spare bottle of blue juice with you?
Yes, I prefer Rain-X brand, the orange juice, but yeah.
All right, well, fine. I think blue juice generically, windshield washer fluid.
Exactly. I always have a spare of that. I've got my spare just winter kit, and I generally keep a bunch of tools and stuff like that in my car.
And how often do you check your windshield wipers?
Windshield wipers I pretty much replace every winter because we do so much sanding around here that it'll destroy your wipers and your windshield. So
actual sand? They actual sand?
Oh yes.
Wow.
Sand enhances traction and isn't prone to freezing like other things.
Yeah. Right, because especially this time of year, we've already had a couple of days where we're down to about 18 below zero in the mornings.
Warm.
Yeah. So those mornings, even if you salt the roads, salt only works down to about 10 degrees. Some salts will work down closer to like 4 degrees.
Theoretically zero, but
yeah.
But yeah, effectively not so much.
Exactly.
I grew up in Minnesota where, you were lucky if it came up to zero during January. The entire month of January would be negative even for the high of the day. And it was a whole different set of problems there. It wasn't so much about the snow because quite often it was way too cold to snow. So we didn't get snow, we didn't get ice except for the beginning and the end of the season. In the middle of the season, it was more about temperature-related problems like your vehicle not starting or being so cold that you can't get it into gear. Things like that.
Can't get the door open.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, freezing.
Your soft, plushy seat is hard as a rock because the foam is frozen.
It is totally true. I've had a couple of days when I lived a little closer to the lake where the lake side of my car, which because of the side of the street I lived on, happened to be my driver's side, had about an inch of ice on it every morning. And I would have to warm up the car for quite a while and run the automatic transmission through its various gears. And try to get it to warm up enough to actually be able to engage in a gear.
Yay.
Yeah.
I had a certain vehicle whose four-letter word starting with J I will not utter because of the crowd, but when it was cold out, I had to sit on the opposite side of the vehicle and with both hands and my legs press the steering wheel through a full stroke just to get the fluid moving, because otherwise I would not be able to turn to the right when I went out on the road. So I had to exercise full lock several times just to get the fluid moving. Out there, it was the prep for your season was much more about prepping the cooling system and the heating system and the electrical system so that it would start. And you wanted to make sure that you were able to get your defroster working as well as possible. Because when it's 35 below out, your froster, the best it can do on full on with cardboard in the radiator is this little porthole about 8 inches in diameter, which hopefully is right in front of you. Otherwise, you're learning to drive all slouched down like the kids do in their tuner cars.
Yeah.
And then you've got this little handheld defroster or scraper that you're reaching up and do the inside of your windshield as you drive, like kind of like windshield wipers on the inside.
Well, I mean, like driving a series truck when it's all foggy and
Much
rainy.
like that, yeah.
I use the on my Series 3. I have a squeegee. Is that what everybody calls them? I don't know. And I'll use it on the inside to clean the windscreen on the inside because it gets foggy and wet.
Well, you have to do that in Minnesota no matter what you have in the depths of January.
Mental note, I'm never moving to Minnesota ever.
I think it was Minnesota. I just saw they had a like 30-car pileup on the highway, and they have a YouTube video. It was like a 5-minute lapse for all of this to happen. It was
it all
insane.
happens in very slow motion.
Well, there was one in PA happened just on the other side of the state.
Yeah, I almost had to drive through that.
Did you really? Ooh,
Yeah.
That was bad. It was like 30 or 40 cars.
Yeah, growing up, you learn not to go when the light turns green, so you've looked everywhere to make sure everybody's stopped.
Yep,
Because there'll be somebody sliding through, and you just sort of wave, hi, how you doing, and just acknowledge, yeah, I see it. It's your turn to slide through. Next time, it'll be mine.
To follow along with this conversation, we did find on Alberta, speaking of cold weather areas, Alberta, if you've not in Canada, the province. I've actually been to Calgary and Red Deer, and which is that's out there. That's north, and I was there in October, and that was not fun. They had plugged in their diesel engines in October. That's how cold it was there already in October. And everywhere you go. Hotels, restaurants all had electric outlets. Like, what's that? It was almost like a parking meter. You're like, what is that? Oh,
So you can touch up your hair on the way to your appointment. Yeah, that's what it's
that was
for.
exactly what it's for. And they're like, oh, that's a plug-in for your electric heater to keep the engine warm. So yeah, that was.
When it hits 40 below, that ain't enough for a diesel. You just leave it running.
Yeah, it wasn't that cold.
They just
thankfully.
leave them run all night. Don't shut them off.
So, the Alberta Land Rover Enthusiasts, which is a good name, they should add enthusiast to the name. They have a section of driving tutorials, and there's 4 videos. We'll put a link up with our show notes. And to this, it is alre.ca, pretty good way to go to get to it. And it's Biosphere Expeditions has created some. Looks like 4 videos. There's Driving Principles 1, Driving Principles 2, Sand Driving, and Snow and Ice Driving. And it's all oriented towards a newer Land Rover with electronic abilities, electronic tech, including the, what's that called? Terrain response.
Yes.
Mainly. But still... I think they're nicely done, and they're for automatic and manual, and there's some good basic info there. Approaching hills. I can't say that I watched all of them, but they are no more than 10 minutes a pop. So they're interesting to watch. I think that. Did you, Mark, get a chance to look at any of them?
Not all of them, but from what I saw, they're well done, good videos.
Just good driving tips in general. Really, don't do anything stupid.
Yes.
Gee. That's groundbreaking.
Well, there are people out there that like to do stupid things.
Yeah, but telling them not to isn't going to help.
But knowing they're there and looking ahead.
That's right. It's an important thing to do. So anybody have anything they'd like to end on for winter driving? Dave, you've done a lot of winter driving in your Subaru and Volvos and other such vehicles. Anything you want to throw in?
Everyone should just keep away from me.
Good idea no matter what time of year.
Quite possibly.
On or off the road.
Don't drive directly in front of Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say, I do pity the person that rear ends me.
I pity the person you rear end.
No, I feel worse for the person that rear ends me, especially if they're driving something small.
Keeping in my my interest in classic Rovers, along with the series, there's the Range Rover Classics. There is an original, I guess it's actually first production Range Rover that has recently been nearly completed in a restoration. There's a gentleman from England, his name is Andrew Honeychurch, who purchased chassis number 26 in 2000, and it had no engine in it at the time. He spent the last 12 years purchasing parts, original parts, because obviously there's no really good quality two-spec reproduction parts for the Range Rovers. So he's been buying up a lot of parts and restoring this, stripped it down to nothing, and it's going to be a showroom restoration, and it looks like he's going to be putting it up for sale when he's done. Pretty impressive looking.
This is in the UK?
This is in the UK, yeah.
Looks like it needs a lot of work.
Yes, some of the photos show what it looked like in 2000 when he pulled it out of a garage. But there are quite a few other photos of it a little farther along. And it's looking to be in mint condition, and it's using all original parts.
$600 fuel cap. I would hope that's mint condition.
Yes, definitely.
Wow.
It's immaculate.
So aside from a new engine and general restoration, anything else? He wants to make it roadworthy, I assume.
He wanted to make it roadworthy, but really because this was one of the, if not the first, I guess this was the first registered production Range Rover.
Yeah, I've read different accounts. It's either
history.
The first production or it's a late prototype. But it's very early in the deal, which makes it very historically significant and worthy of a restoration.
Yep. And he personally feels that it should not really be driven, that it really should be preserved for history once it's complete. But he is selling it, so it's really up to the buyer.
If it's complete, it would be drivable and fully functional if it's been fully restored. But yeah, I think that if you had something of that significant value, you wouldn't want to drive it much if you did drive it.
Right.
Now, do we know if this is the earliest known Range Rover that's left, or are there others? Was anybody aware?
The details are not clear on that.
So I'm wondering if, is this it's significant, obviously, but how significant is it?
Well, if it is the first production Range Rover to be registered, then it would be significant because there would be none older. Save a few prototypes in a museum somewhere, but they wouldn't be the production model.
But we're not sure that this is the first. How sure are they this is the first production one?
Well, I mean, it's either the first production one or it's the 26th prototype. So either way, it's a very elite crowd.
I guess I should have paid more attention. Sorry, it's chassis 26.
Yes, chassis 26, and there were 25 pre-production models.
All right, so that would make this the first production truck off the line.
Yep.
I wonder why it's not in a museum already at that rate.
I think it's because he's had it for the last 12 years, restoring it.
Well, yeah.
Well, I would think that typically Land Rover, or not just Land Rover, but most manufacturers are going to pull their first production one and hang on to it for archival purposes. I guess they had the prototypes, so they did it with them instead.
Right.
Of course, in 1970, BL was hurting for money enough they probably couldn't afford to hang on to them. They had to sell every one they could make.
Although in this day and age, with 65 anniversary going on, I'm surprised they haven't tracked it down. Maybe that's why he's come forward, thinking they'll find out about it and maybe they'll want to buy it off of him.
It is featured in a new book called The First 50.
When we jump ahead to a new Range Rover, I saw a interesting article out of, I think, Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi, where it's just a short article, not very scientific, but I was caught by the headline of how much power has our Range Rover lost since new, And so they have a. Why don't they tell me the year? Now that I see this, I don't see the year. But it's a 4.4 liter V8, 9 years old now, and this is a current article, so that would put it 2002, maybe, right? Maybe 2003
or 2004 if it's 9 years old, not 11.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't. I was at the wrong.
Did the math backwards.
I was doing my math wrong. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's
It's
math from the Middle East. What are you going to do?
Oh yeah, it's different.
Oh yeah, clearly they only came up with math.
Yeah, they use Arabic numerals there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we don't. We use American numerals. Don't
Yeah,
we?
right.
And here's your problem. It has kilometers. Who does kilometers? Has 100,000, 100,000. 107,000 kilometers on the odometer.
The short answer is you do in your 109.
Well, that too. And
when it works.
So they did a little test after all these years. They ran it up to 100 kilometers, and they wanted to see. They clocked it, and they got 9.3 seconds. And the official manufacturer time for that speed was 9.2 seconds. So, and they're non-scientific, and they clearly say that estimation. It's held up pretty well. This guy hasn't put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's been, in his words, reliable. And the article led into a lot of comments on reliability and all those kinds of fun things. But I think it's a one little data point that Land Rovers are probably not as unreliable as they used to be. It's not the be all end all, but it's a nice little point that some of the newer models are, in fact, maybe holding up, even though you guys don't like the electronics.
I'm okay with them. It's more of a jealousy thing in my case. I like the best of both worlds. I'd be just as happy in a good old Defender as I would a brand new Range Rover.
Well, I'm not against electronics. I think they have their place, and I think some vehicles that have built themselves on a reputation of not having excessive electronics kind of need to stay that way. And whereas Range Rover has evolved into a showcase for vehicular electronics, I think it's all well and good to have some gadgets on there.
Yeah.
Well, and it's good to see that the gadgets are holding up.
Right. Yeah, I had a buddy ask me recently about buying a Range Rover Sport. He was asking about it and how well it had done, and I asked around, and folks seemed to think it was a generally reliable vehicle, so pass that information on.
As long as you keep up with your maintenance, and then if you do need things, they're likely to be expensive. But in general, the experience, statistically speaking, has been good.
Right. And he had been a Toyota guy, and he says he didn't want to buy a Toyota because he actually thought, in his mind, the reliability of the Toyota had gone down, and so he had reached that point where he was looking for something fun. He likes speed too, which
Toyotas have lost so much ground that now they're pretty much even with everybody else reliability-wise,
and I think others have made up for that ground that they lost too. I think they've come down a little. Toyota's come down a little bit, while everybody else has come up.
Yeah, including companies like Jaguar and Land Rover.
Absolutely, and even Ford and General Motors. I mean, they've done better. Everybody's doing better, which is good for everybody.
As they should. They should learn from things and improve the product. That's what it's about. Absolutely.
So go ahead out and buy a used Range Rover, or buy a new one. Let us know how it goes. if you've got the money.
Yeah. Buy a new one and then take it to your local independent shop for service. Support the local economy.
All right, so a point of clarification from our last episode. We talked about off-road parks in Pennsylvania, Paragon, Anthracite, and Roush Creek. And Dave was good enough to kind of get all that stuff together and figure it out for us because I get confused. And Dave was going to clarify for us.
Yes. Both Roush Creek and the Anthracite Outdoor Adventure Area are public ventures. Anthracite will officially, or is scheduled to be officially opening here early in 2014, although it is possible to schedule private viewings and trail rides with some of the entities that are running that establishment. Roush Creek is open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all year round, with the exception, I believe, of Christmas Day. And Paragon was formerly a private venture, which had closed in 2007. There had been rumors that it would be reopening, but as far as we're aware, that never actually did come to fruition.
And it sounds like Paragon didn't become one of these other guys either, which I thought may have happened, but I don't think that's the case.
Correct. Although I do believe it was in the general area.
Yeah, they're all three of these are all in the same area. I think that's what it's all in like central Pennsylvania.
That's where the mountains are.
Yeah.
And the roads aren't.
And the roads aren't, yeah. And that's also old land that probably isn't owned by state park lands or hunting lands. And they were all, well, a lot of them sounds like they were all old coal mining areas and there's nothing else to do with them. Or, yeah, the land, they didn't figure something else to do with them.
Well, and that's exactly the case with several of these locations. I know that Roush has been logged. And I understand that the plan is that it will be logged again in the future. Anthracite, they've actually trucked in a drag line as just a display, as part of the stuff to look at while you're there.
I know Paragon was near, what's that, Centralia? Is that the place in Pennsylvania that has a... Fire. Yeah, well, the mine underneath the town is on fire and has been for like 40 years.
The eternal flame.
Yes, essentially. And I think that was Centralia, PA, and Paragon was near that because I was at Paragon years ago, and I know we took like a sort of a day trip, and you could still drive around, and then sometimes there's a hole in a road, and yeah, there weren't really flames coming out, but you could.
It just looks spooky on Google Maps.
Oh, it is. Oh,
I
it's.
haven't driven through there yet, but
yeah,
that looks spooky.
It's kind of like foggy even without it being foggy, because there's just haze and smoke everywhere. It's if you get a chance, you just do it just to do it.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to end our December 2013 podcast with looking into the future into 2014. I gave everybody the assignment to think about what they would like to do Land Rover related for 2014. It's open-ended to them. I will share some of mine. Podcast related, I have two things that we want to talk about maybe the next time is Dave brought over the copy of that expedition guide book, which we talked about in the last episode. And it's a vehicle-dependent expedition guide, so we'll get a look at that. It looks really interesting, and I'd like to talk about that in the future, by Tom Shepard. And also the TIA-Fit Sound and Vision folks in the UK, Graham Aldous, he did the first Overland video a couple years ago. He's done a LR65 video this time. I got it in the mail, haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I'm going to look at that and maybe do a little bit of a review on that one. And my personal future thing that I'd like to do is get my Defender back on the road after having been fully restored. That's my big push for 2014.
Oh, I'm going to be very busy in 2014. On the Land Rover front, actually, probably tomorrow, I'm going to be making some calls and ordering lockers and gears for my D2. And hopefully having that all prepared so that I can drive it to the main winter romp here in mid-February.
So you're going to be our main winter romp reporter?
I and Bill Fischel.
Good.
On the rest of my Rover front, I'm going to be relocating all of my Rovers from their current homes to the family farm. My own little personal Rover-Topia. And that is probably going to take all year.
Yeah. So you're getting a new piece of property and you're moving your house. Good.
I have a lot in the air that I'd like to accomplish, so it's going to be kind of what I can get done and what I can afford. I want to rip out all of the interior in mine and redo all of that.
Oh, yeah?
Get rid of droopy ceiling, get rid of the wet carpet, all of that nonsense.
And replace it with?
Soundproofing and paint.
Okay.
Need to shore up some things with the engine. I have a leak of some sort somewhere that I have yet to identify. Harold. And
you want Harold to identify the leak?
I could use some help on that one. And just some general underbody armor needs to be looked into and hopefully get some going so I don't break anything else.
Always good not to break anything.
Yes.
You want to go next, Harold?
I have 3 wishes for the future. Some of which are attainable this next year and some are not.
Any coincide with any of my wishes?
Perhaps. Number one, I'm anxiously awaiting the return of the new Defender. Number two, I would really like to see Land Rover start selling diesel engines in this country.
Hear, hear. I think that's, yes.
Yes.
I'll agree with that one. Hear, hear.
And number three, in addition to all the things I do for my customers and my apparently ever-expanding waiting list, I am really hoping for a little bit of time to work on my own fleet this next year.
There we go. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, you can get the ambulance back on the road full time.
Would be nice, wouldn't it?
And I am hoping to have work settle down a little bit so that I can pick up my Land Rover Restoration and get mine back on the road. I have some small wishes related to that. One, that my finances work out and I can maybe pick up a Rome off-road disc brake conversion kit for my Series 3. That would make my whole life a lot easier.
Yep.
Not only just in the safety of driving and increased stopping ability, but also so much easier to just put all of that in instead of drum brakes all around and fiddling with those. But yeah, that's my main
Far less
wish.
adjustment involved in that process. It's a once and done sort of thing.
Yes, I much prefer disc brakes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you'll appreciate them.
A properly adjusted set of drum brakes will stop the vehicle, but there's a whole lot less fiddling around to be done with disc brakes, and they're more heat tolerant, and they get wet better, and all those sorts of things.
Exactly.
So that ends the 9th edition of the Centresteer podcast for December 2013. I want to thank everyone for listening. If you have any thoughts, ideas for making the podcast better, or at least saying it's okay for the time being, we always try to make it better. Go ahead and send us an email or send us a tweet and let us know what your thoughts are.
Or if you would like to help out with the Rover Make-A-Wish, our new foundation to make our Rover wishes come true.
Send $5 to you.
$5, parts, whichever.
Parts. We'll take free parts. There you go.
And if you have any complaints about what we're doing or ways that we're doing it wrong, please address that to the primary incineration facility in Secaucus, New Jersey.
Thanks, everybody. Have yourself a wonderful 2014. Hopefully we'll talk to you next month. Thanks very much. The Centresteer theme song, Sunset Rider by the Tritons, is available from Mibio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.mibio.com. Things sounding good. Anybody need anything before we get rolling?
I'm good.